This is the Invincible podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about Invincible Episode 8, Where I Really Come From.
I was wrong to raise you as a human. I should have prepared you better, taught you more. Your life has been soft and painless. You're a Viltrumite in blood only. Well, your true education begins now.
Welcome back, fellow Guardians. Yes, it is I, one of your hosts, Chris, and this time we're talking about the Season 1 finale of Invincible, Where I Really Come From. It is the epitome, the culmination of blood, guts, gore, and one guy never getting to say his actual superhero name. I am joined by my illustrious co-host...
Yes, I'm your other co-host, Derek. Welcome back. I loved, because we can say this now, the Season 1 finale for Invincible. I loved that this week we got the announcement that we're getting at least two more seasons of Invincible from Robert Kirkman and Stephen Yeun. The reason why I mentioned it is exactly as you say, Chris, a character who doesn't get to say his name, because we have Stephen Yeun getting a phone call from Robert Kirkman to tell him about the two new seasons, and he goes, oh wow, two more seasons of... And then it cuts to the title, Invincible. So, Stephen Yeun, I don't know whether he's ever said Invincible in his life.
He probably hasn't. It's probably a running gag now. It's just going to be like, that comic book show, that animated show, that series of where you play a superhero. Like, they'll never say Invincible.
Exactly. Or everybody else around him will say Invincible and he won't be able to talk about it in interviews or anything. But that's a great announcement though, isn't it? That we do have two more seasons at least of the show. I think Kirkman said, I hope we have 1 million seasons. So that's Kirkman, of course.
He's got the material for it.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to lie. Like, again, this is based on a 144 issue show. He said he is expanding elements of this. This is his version 2 of a story, second draft. So he's got the material, 16 more episodes, 15 to 14 more hours of Invincible. We were messaging each other and you basically, I was middle of my day-to-day day job and I got your message and I just ear to ear grinned because this is my, I don't know, this is my magnus opus of kind of a show to talk about.
Right.
It's animated, it's adult, it's based on a comic book I know. Like, literally, I would just need an adult Spider-Man, and the only thing that would beat it would be an adult Spider-Man cartoon.
Hey, I think if you look at some certain sites on the internet, they do have an adult Spider-Man in there.
That's true.
The upside down kiss is included and everything, Chris.
Oh my God, yes. Okay, let me say an officially licensed product.
Oh, right.
Yes, there you go. But yeah, no, this was huge news. It really was. It was a way for them to really plant their flag. Like, this is something we believe in. And this also then makes me happy to think that we, over the last 8 weeks, have seen probably a steady word of mouth growth.
Absolutely.
For this show.
Yeah.
To the point where I was seeing people who have never talked about MCU, have never talked about, like, one of the persons loves Bridgerton. I saw them talk about Bridgerton for ages, and that was it. Like, they're not, I'm not slagging Bridgerton. It is a fantastic show with a lot of booty.
Haven't seen it.
But, like, this never would have crossed my mind for a show for them to watch. And I saw them Instagramming about it last night going, oh, I can't wait, a couple more hours to Invincible finale. I'm like, what? You? Just not... Everyone can love a show, but this was just, I did not expect you to. I'm so happy you are. And guess what? Season 2 and 3. And I told them and they were super happy.
Well, even just talking about the numbers from our podcast, you know, I keep an eye on the numbers for downloads for our episodes, and Marvel tends to be where we get most of our downloads. Yeah. When we do a Marvel show, we get our biggest hit from our audience. It's always happened. Right now we've covered WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier this year on the podcast. when the first couple of episodes, I think 3 episodes of Invincible came out in the same day, we released our podcast about that. We were getting about a third of the audience for the first 3 episodes, and then the 4th episode, it kind of went up a little bit. And weekly now, every single week, Falcon and the Winter Soldier was coming out, and our Invincible episodes are coming out, and we have exactly the same audience for both shows. So I think Invincible is as big as we'll probably get on Amazon Prime, at least. The Boys was one of our biggest shows as well before. So Amazon Prime are certainly upping their stakes and getting their viewership out there for these kind of shows, and it's great to see. And we're getting a brand new audience coming to us for our podcast too. So welcome aboard if you've joined us for Invincible, of course.
Yes, so happy. By the way, we do have a third, but we know that you're actually secretly here because you don't like our third on the other shows, and you just want to hear just the 2 of us talk. So on that, thank you so much.
Yes. Our third member of our cast of podcasters, John, has not joined us this week. He thought he was going to join us for this episode, but he's unavailable to join us. But I will talk a little bit about his viewing experience for this episode later on. Let's jump into the episode, then, Chris.
Yes, let's do it. First and foremost, do you want to tell us who gave us what?
Absolutely, yeah. Once again, show created by Robert Kirkman, Corey Walker, and Ryan Otley. This episode was written by, of course, Robert Kirkman, because your showrunner always writes your starter and ender of a season, right?
Exactly. They have to.
Yeah. The episode was directed by William Rosica. He was a storyboard artist on Wonder Woman Bloodlines, Justice League vs. Teen Titans, Batman Bad Blood, and he was also an animator on Spider-Man Unlimited and Transformers Prime. Lots of great shows there.
Oh, I love Bloodlines, and I did actually really enjoy Bad Blood. That was the Damien one, if I remember correctly.
I think that's the one, yes. Absolutely. Chris, do you want to tell us the synopsis for the episode?
Sure. Mark must prove he's become the hero he's always wanted to be by stopping an unstoppable force.
Well, he kind of does, I guess.
Yeah, he stops the unstoppable force with his face.
Mm-hmm, and his arms and his legs and pretty much every part of his body, yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Pretty much. It's just like, it's like stopping, it's trying to like stop the wind.
And his thoughts and feelings, though. He uses those as well.
Does he? I have a question about this, but let's get on to that later. I have a question, does he?
Yeah, we normally talk about our top points for the episode, but this episode really is totally centered around our main point, which is the real Voltrum, the real reveal of what's going on with Omni-Man and the planet of Voltrum. So I think we'll probably talk about that as our kind of big moment from the episode, and then we'll kind of fill in some of the other stuff that's in there to lead to a season 2 and season 3, right? So that's probably the best way to go, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's the best way. So let's get into it. With Voltrumites are bad.
Oh, yes, they are. You've been teasing for weeks that the basic concept of this superhero on the planet would be revealed as to why he did what he did. We all thought there was going to be some reason behind why he killed the original Guardians of the Globe. Well, that's not the only thing he's doing here. I think I'd speculated on the episodes. I think it stayed in the recording. I did edit it, so I'm sure it stayed in the recording that my speculation was that he was planning for an invasion. It was similar to that, but I didn't realize the extent of how far Omni-Man and the planet of Voltrum was going. So we get the flashback, we get the reveal of what the Voltrumites do, which is effectively they weed out the weak and on their own home planet have spent century wiping out all of the weakness that they had, and now they are left with only people who believe in the Voltrumite ideals and what they want to accomplish. They've gotten rid of everybody, at half their entire population, to weed out everybody. We also hear that Nolan wasn't even born when this happened. He came along afterwards, so he's only been in the society of the strong Voltrumites as well, which I thought was quite interesting. But I think that Nazi ideal, as I was describing it to you, Chris, off mic, that Nazi ideal that was in there is the one thing I couldn't have guessed was going to happen. That he's talking about, first you wipe out all the weak, and then you make a great society. And what he's actually doing on Earth here is actually wiping out all of the strong, all of the defense of Earth, so they can easily be incorporated into the Voltrumite society. Yeah.
And we do learn more about it in the comic books, and the theory is there. Like they've already kind of planted all this beyond the seas. They've told it. The whole aspect is they were getting tired of waging constant war. So why not send one person to destroy those defenses, and then that incursion and inclusion into the Empire is easier.
Yeah.
Because they were spread too thin. That is essentially, this is an empire that has gone to the furthest reaches of space and have had to war on multiple fronts because they wanted to bring everyone in, the strongest of the strong. And yeah, this is the culmination was we're going to take 35 special order SS type guys to go in and work behind the enemy lines to essentially prepare them.
Interesting. So I didn't hear a number in the episode, so that's probably a comic book thing. 35 of their.
Oh, he says it.
He does say great. We have a kind of a number as well. So one of the things that's obviously really interesting about the story is that it only takes one Omni-Man to effectively destroy all of Earth's defenses. Yep. What about all of the rest of the people from that planet who presumably have as big powers as he does, because he doesn't mark himself out as anything unique from Viltrumite? He basically says everybody there has those powers. So, so that's kind of interesting. If you have an army of them going up against a weakened Earth who's gotten rid of all of their heroes, or whose heroes have all been taken away, nobody can beat them, really.
No, there's an empire of Viltrumites.
Yeah.
And there's the 35 was just 35 going off to the planets to live in that planet. Mm-hmm. The other key thing I just wanted to call out before we go on is the age.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So this has now been established, which is great. Which is Viltrumites age slowly. Mm-hmm. So when Mark is close to 500 years old, he will look 30.
Yes.
So as you get older, your aging slows down. So just cast your mind back to a time immemorial in an episode where Nolan flies into a different dimension where time runs super fast. And I didn't call it out then because it would have led to questions.
Yeah.
But years and years, potentially hundreds of years passes while Nolan is destroying a world.
Yeah.
And then he flies back and we see him with the beard. Mm-hmm. Just wanted to call out that when Nolan was away in that other dimension, he was gone for hundreds of years.
Possibly hundreds, because again, if you're saying that time slows, then growing a massive beard like that might take you, Chris, a couple of weeks, but
days. I'm going to call it days.
Okay,
yes.
well, that would take me a couple of hundred millennia. But yes, it could be absolutely, as you say, it could be a couple of 100 years that he was there. We're going to talk about them a little bit in another point, that planet that he visited as well. But you're absolutely right calling that out, because he does mention to this whole piece to Mark. And I think it kind of plays into the fact that he believes life is completely insignificant outside of the Viltrumite homeworld, effectively. His homeworld. He's there for them. And he describes the insignificance as, but it's just a blink in time. He's the fight between Mark, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, but the fight between Mark and Nolan, where he's beating on him, and then Mark's not accepting this idea from his father. And then he kind of goes, well, screw it, I could just kill you and have another child. What's 17 years in a 1,000-year-old or thousands of years old person? I could just kill you and make another child, So he totally believes that all the world is insignificant. Yeah,
and it's so... I think we've seen this in a couple of different, mostly comic books or books or novels. That not this particular... The whole thing is that if you live forever... Mm-hmm. What does the in-between moments look like?
Absolutely.
If you are immortal, does 10 years with someone, how does that compare to the hundreds of other years in your lifetime? Yeah.
I think my favorite representation of that is probably the Anne Rice vampire novels. That's the whole story behind those is people that live for thousands of years outside of the world. How do they connect to the world, kind of thing? So
yes.
This is a very big flip on that. But will we talk a little bit about the fight, because there's lots of interesting movements in this fight. How well directed, because you could easily just brush it off and say this show is violent, and all that happens is people get punched in the face and get covered in blood, and then there's more violence, and then there's more violence. But I think they actually structured the violence in this episode to really demonstrate what's going on between Mark and his father. I think it was really interesting, really well done. Obviously, the original initial fight is about what he's being told between Mark and Nolan. But as the fight goes on, I think the push towards Mark accepting how insignificant human life is so well done.
Slightly graphically done.
Very graphically done. And I think it does take cues from other superhero shows. So I don't think Invincible could have existed in any way without other comic books. There's other comic books where you go, that's an amazing comic book, read that. If you never read another comic book, then this is the one that you should read. I don't think Invincible is like that. I think you absolutely need to have a knowledge of comic book movies, comic book TV shows, or comics themselves to be able to get why it's so significant. What I found the most interesting part of it, or the best part of the fight, I suppose, was the destruction of Chicago. When Nolan punches Mark into Chicago and you see buildings fall on top of people. They do so much in every TV show and movie to show how regular humans escape the destruction from superheroes. Whereas here, they're naturally seeing a car flip over and kill 5 people that were just on screen a second ago. Naturally seeing somebody who's buying an ice cream getting killed, and the person behind them in the queue,
the daughter,
or the daughter, watching on as the person in front of them dies. Like, it is showing more realistically what would happen if a city was being destroyed. We saw in Man of Steel, I think it was the big example of that, where we had Metropolis being destroyed and still loads of people surviving. They didn't dwell on loads of people being killed in that. Whereas here they're going, well, you know what? Actually, if a building's falling down on a crowded street full of people, everybody there's going to die. Yeah,
no, this for me was the epitome of the realism of this. So as you said, right, and it's the best example, and thank you. It is, this exists and is predicated on you understanding superhero norms and tropes, be it through film, TV, or through comic books. So that the good guys always win, the humans are saved, general population is bubbled and safe. And you're like, it kind of started with probably in its kind of celluloid, it started with Man of Steel. And there was always that kind of Superman doesn't kill, people don't die. And then when we saw Batman v Superman, you see like Ben Affleck run into destroyed buildings and stuff like that. This takes it that step further. And it really does, because it's showing the fragility of a human being when theoretically gods are fighting. In that general sense of the word, in that they are theoretically immortal, based on human lifespan.
Or they invincible.
We don't say that word. They are indestructible. Again, and when you throw water, or like when you put a bullet-shaped water against a rock, the water spreads around it. Like, and that's the best way I can see, is that, like, you see when he flies and you hear Mark fall through the building and break the sound barrier before he comes through, and then just you see the horror on his face when he sees the destruction his unconscious body has caused by ricocheting consistently down the street. And it's just so... Not that I revel in violence and gore, and like I do, I love my Hammer House of Horror films, and
not that I revel in it, but I do.
Yeah, well, like, I revel in horror. Like, that's a different thing, and like I don't revel in this, but it's so well scripted to show that fragility. And before we get to the underground scene, I want to talk about just the flight fight and where we see them, and then the culmination of that. So seeing Nolan fly against and destroy those fighter jets when they fire those rockets at him is so well done. The culmination of Mark trying to save the human life, and then this is where you really start to see the twisted nature of Nolan and the choice and understanding in his eyes of how insignificant human life is. It's like there's that whole piece where it's like, what care does a boot have for an ant?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's Loki, isn't it? From Avengers. Yes, absolutely. But it is also speaking back to what we've seen on the series. And I know Mark has this moment later on when he remembers everything his father said to him and that we've seen on the show. And when you take it from this new point of view of who Nolan is, everything that he said is not a lie. Everything that he's been saying to Mark about things being beneath him is exactly how Nolan feels. Why save one human? Save the planet that they're on, because the planet's going to become part of the Voltrum Empire in the future. Don't save the individual person, because they're going to be dead in 50 years anyway. What do they matter? And the fact that Mark saves the pilot and then has his head crushed right in front of him by his father in this most brutal manner, it's like, well, what does it matter if he dies today or in 50 years? Because 50 years is nothing in our lifespan. It's so well written, and it's all calling back to stuff earlier on in the season. Even the violence that happens in Chicago with people dying around them that in most other superhero movies would be saved. That's a callback to the battle back in episode 2 with the alien attack, where we saw an old lady getting destroyed right in front of Mark, and loads of other innocent human beings just getting destroyed in front of them. So it's just, again, to use the words you've used already, it's the culmination of everything we've seen this season, and that's why it's a well-written season. They've taken all the elements, they've given you all these moments earlier on, and put them into this final battle between Mark and Nolan, which is really good. Yeah. Also, the moment of Mark trying to actually save at least one human, where he grabs the mother who falls out of the window by her arm, and the next we see of them is just her arm in Mark's hand as the building has fallen down. Brutal. Shocking.
You forget. It's like, oh yeah, so the mother's amputated and dead under rubble, and that kid is gone.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's shocking, and you can see. I've seen a lot of people just kind of put up the different types of gifs or gifs, depending on how you want to call it.
Still gifs.
Or just the shocked face emoji for talking about this, because that is how I sat there. I knew what was coming.
Yeah,
I knew this all was here, and I still sat there in rapture. And the best I can give it is that kind of, and why I kept saying this is Kirkman's magnus opus. This is his V2, his news telling of this story. So he's had this opportunity, is the subway scene.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say that we've been podcasting for 6 years. I usually write the notes for all of our episodes as well. I was just going to say that I've watched this episode 3 times in order to get my notes together for it, because every time watching I'm going, oh my God, they didn't just do that as well. There are moments in this where I'm going, there's so much being thrown at you about how insignificant life is for this character of Nolan that has always been avoided in normal TV shows, cartoons, movies of every type. The dog always escapes, that kind of stuff that you see in every Hollywood movie. There's always a moment where the innocent person gets away. But what we're being shown here is Nolan disregards everything so much that everybody can die. Everybody. And it doesn't matter to him one iota. So yes, the subway moment. So that's kind of the next level above. Let's see how you can accidentally cause massive damage in Chicago. This is, I am going to force you to destroy an entire train full of people, and you're going to be covered in their blood as you are passing through every single carriage, watching people innocently traveling on their commute, effectively dying in your face. That is brutal.
On your face.
Because
they are hitting you. They are the immovable objects. He's being forced, and it doesn't help that he's flailing.
Yeah.
Mark is full on flailing against it, and that is, you see this one part, he actually whips his hand through one person, much like his father did with the Immortal.
Yeah.
That for me is just that is when you pour water on a rock. The rock does not move.
Right.
And it's like that, blood just dripping and just eviscerating over people. This is not violence for violence sake, and that's why I think it's so well written, because it's just So it's not even examples. It's just the epitome of showing why this, like, why do you care about them, Mark? Stop caring about them.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, okay, we're going to fight, and he shoots you off, and we fire you into the side of a mountain and punch you until the mountain
cracks.
Yeah. By the way, which looked fantastic.
Really did. Yeah, really did.
And then just causing that massive avalanche where you see people run. I think I saw a dog get killed.
It's a whole town. He destroys an entire town while beating on Mark. Nolan knows he's not going to kill Mark there, at least. He's not trying to kill Mark. This isn't the hero versus the villain where they're trying to do everything to kill them. Accidentally, a town gets destroyed. Yeah. This is him trying to teach Mark a lesson, and a whole town full of people get killed in the process. Yeah. And it leads to that kind of final discussion between Nolan and Mark where he's saying to him, I shouldn't have brought you up as weak and human. You should always have been brought up as a Viltrumite. Now all you are is someone that has the blood of the Viltrum Empire in your veins, but you are human effectively, but you aren't one of us. And that's where he's saying to him, 17 years is nothing in my life. I can kill you now and move on, basically. And then we have possibly my favorite comedy moments. This is the one you wanted to talk about, Chris. So there's a little comedy moment in this, a little comedy touch in this, I'd say. The memory of Nolan of a day at a baseball game, watching Mark hit a home run effectively. Why I say it's a comedy moment is the cutback. Sorry, I'm laughing, but it's the cutback from happy Mark as a child with no front teeth to Mark on the mountain with no front teeth and his father just punched out of his face. I think that's a really funny cut, and in animation, that's exactly what that cut is supposed to be. It's supposed to look exactly the same, but the fact that it's his father having just punched the front teeth out of his son, I just thought was very funny.
No, it is. It's just also...
And I'm not taking away from the emotion of the scene. The scene itself was emotional.
But that's the problem. That is my problem with this scene.
Okay.
So this is something I have to reread the comic books, but this is not my memory of the comic books. And it just seemed a bit too 80s family values.
Okay, that's not the reason why he makes the change. And this is just a memory he has of Mark at the baseball game, and it's the contribution of his wife Deborah to the life of their son. This is why he's different. That's all the memory is supposed to be. The change is actually when Nolan comes back and effectively shouts at Mark that you're going to live 500 years. Nobody else in the world should matter to you. What are you going to have in 500 years? The fact that Mark says, you, Dad, that's what I'm going to have in 500 years. That's the change in Nolan.
Yes, but he's already shaking, and his fists are already shaking from that memory before he punches Mark again. And that's when he's screaming at Mark. So his hand has already been stayed, but to a degree by that. Yeah. And that's the one where I was like... He's
trying to push through it, of course, but it's not... I just mean it's not the full change. It's certainly the start of his knowledge. But I do think the line from Mark when he's bleeding and broken on the ground, having been beaten by his father all across the country, possibly the world, getting to another mountain range, and still says, I'll have you, Dad, in 500 years. That is the great and really well written moment of the episode and why the change happens. I think it's fantastic.
And that is very close to what happens in the comic books.
Yeah.
Like that, and that's the emotion for me, which is the father-son bond. And it's like, well, they'd all die, but I'd still have you.
Yeah.
I don't know. This baseball scene just took me slightly out. And it's designed to take you out.
Yeah.
It just felt slightly out of place for me.
It feels like a trope. You're right. It feels like something from an 80s movie. Absolutely. Let's have a memory back to their child. But I do love that Nolan's, not looking proudly as a father at the baseball game. He's like, I could just go up in the air and watch it from the sky and have a much better view. He's not looking as a proud father until Debbie intervenes. Yes. Let's talk quickly about Debbie, if you don't mind, throughout this episode, because, Debbie kind of intimates that her investigation with Art into what happened has caused this all to blow up. And she's putting all of the blame on herself that this is happening between Mark and Nolan. and she's lost Nolan completely. I just thought it was interesting because I do think she's quite a strong character in the show, but the fact that you see how much pain this whole thing has caused her, and her kind of final moment in the episode with Art where she's saying, "Give me a whiskey," is effectively saying that I just want Nolan to come back. I want my Nolan back, and if I hadn't done this investigation, the whole thing wouldn't have blown up. It's what she feels, and I don't think that's right. She shouldn't feel like that, but
no.
That's the feelings of the character, so it makes sense to have it. But I do like how the grief that's coming out of her for the loss of her family, effectively, is portrayed by Sandra Oh.
It's the disgust at Cecil, when he kind of interrupts her. And when he kind of, like the initial one where before he starts talking about how Nolan has been killed and his books are going to get sold and they'll be taken care of.
Is that the first time we heard that he's a travel writer? Because I don't remember that as being the premise of his character in the show. I always just thought that they hadn't mentioned that he was a travel writer until that line is what I thought happened. And then I went, that's really smart. He travels around the world, so of course he'd write a couple of notes on that and sell a few books.
I don't know. The fellow Guardians, you have to get back to me on this one. Come back to us on this, because I'm a slightly...
Was it just in the comics kind of thing, or was it in the episode?
It was in the comics.
Yeah.
And I just now can't remember if they actually said it. I have a vague memory from like episode 1 or 2.
See, I think partly because the first 3 episodes were released at the same time. We did the 3 podcasts back to back at the beginning as well, and those kind of little details we may have missed it in there. But I think
it was Venice. Was it not Venice when he talks about taking her to Venice?
No, that was their first date. And he was Superman. He was Omni-Man when he took her on that date to Venice. It was him showing off to her.
When there was the big dragon. He was talking about. Yeah. Anywho, it may have been the first, but no. Like it's.
But I really like the idea that this is what is going to keep Debbie and Mark in money, effectively. That, well, he's dead now, so his books are going to sell like hotcakes, so you're going to be taken care of. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So if you're going to kill someone, just make sure you kill an author and marry them first, but then kill them. That's the thing. So apparently, like an author and a painter, post-mortem, they are worth so much more to you.
Apparently. TV podcast industries does not endorse anybody killing any family members or friends or anybody they don't even know at all. This is a fun podcast about a cartoon.
Yes.
Anything else on the... Oh, of course, sorry. The final part of this movement of this is that Omni-Man leaves Earth. He has a look around kind of at what he's done and leaves. There's a comment from Cecil later on. They followed him all the way out of the solar system and he never moved direction at all. So he's heading very far away. He made no adjustments to his flight path effectively, which means he's traveling a very far distance from where they are. So we could have this hanging over us for a lot of next season, that Omni-Man can come back at any point. He could be going back to get reinforcements. He could be going back saying, don't take over Earth, we'll move on. We don't really know what the reason for him going back is. But there is a discussion with Alan the Alien returning to this in this episode. Seth Rogen coming back to warn Mark of the fact that there's a Viltrumite on Earth. Watch out. Oh, I'm too late? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And like, I love Alan the Alien, and I also just love Seth Rogen. He is that stoner embodiment of, someone would go, oh God, I forgot to tell you, be careful.
I forgot to give you your message last Friday about that interview for the job that you were supposed to have on Monday. Sorry about that, but you have the message now.
It's like, oops. So this is going to, you're right. This is going to be the thing that will hang over our heads because Alan says it. They're not going to let the world be without Viltrumite control. Yeah. So they're going to send someone else. If they don't send Nolan, if Nolan's not gone back to go, whoa, they're going to go send other people.
So this is the thing that's revealed in the conversation with Alan, right? That there is a conglomeration of other planets who have been attacked in the past by Viltrumites. Some of them have been attacked, some of them have been threatened, and they're trying to form together to become some form of force that can stand up to the Viltrumites. And they would be very interested in someone like Mark, who has the powers of the Viltrumites, but isn't on their side. So that's a really interesting development. I love the line from Mark, effectively, where he goes, I was worried about all the things that happened to me, but kind of knowing that it's so small in comparison to what's going on with the worlds getting together in this massive war, effectively, versus the Viltrumites, actually makes me feel a little bit better, because I only have these small things to worry about. We all have these big, massive world or universe battles going on outside of Earth, which I thought was a nice line of setup for season 2 and 3, I suppose.
True, but he does have to finish high school first.
He does. What's what's high school?
Yeah, I love that. He's like, that's great. What's high school? I love the setup here. And I think let's move on, because I want to talk about where we leave it. So we essentially, at the end of this season, Mark is sitting on the moon with Alan the alien, and we can talk about where he might go. But Alan the alien is talking about this conglomeration, this coalition of planets. And then we can move on to kind of our other points or other areas, because we can talk about where we leave the Guardians of the Globe.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, one other thing about Alan, he mentions the fact that his race was one of the ones that was attacked by the Viltrumites. We saw that in the flashback with Nolan at Big in the episode. We see all the other Alan the aliens looking creatures all being completely destroyed by this Viltrumite.
So what I want to call out is, in the comic book, they did the same panels discussions, right? And I think this is pretty much the same. So it's the same aliens, it's the same view, and it's the same shots, but one is for them being all happy and go lucky, like we were originally lied to, and then the truth. So we saw the Alan and the aliens. So in the comic book, it was side by side what you were told on the truth. So like you would see them handing like a gift to this alien race, the Viltrumites, and then the other, they're spearing this other, like a lance through this other race. A Viltrumite is doing it. So it was that kind of truth versus the reality.
Very good.
And I think they did something similar in this one as well, where it was pretty much the same kind of style.
Yeah, when we saw that planet back at the start of the season, that was this cooperation of everybody there and everybody happy clappy. This time we see the pile of half of the dead of the planet there. So that's the truth versus reality part of it. Yeah.
Look, go back and watch, and when you see the standing Viltrumites, there's a big guy, there's 2 women, there's an Asian Viltrumite. Look at those, keep them in mind. They will come back.
Okay.
They are named characters.
Very
I
good.
should say, like
Very
they are
good.
people you should know.
But yes. Let's talk about the Guardians of the Globe first. There's loads of other things that happen in the episode, but where are we with the Guardians of the Globe? In this episode, it's just following on from last week, where Cecil has told him to watch on. If he needs them, he'll call them out. I kind of like it that Adam Eve comes back and joins them for this, because this is such a big world threat. Yeah. Also a very interesting choice that they're not going to even try and go up against Omni-Man. They're going to go out and try and help and save people who've been affected by the attack and by the battle between Omni-Man and Mark. So they are much less of the glory hunters that Rex Splode probably was when we saw him the last time when he went out in the battle. He wanted to be the one that carried it. Now we see that they're actually just going to go out and try and help people.
Yeah, they've shown character progression.
Exactly.
They've shown growth. And I think that's the fun part of it. Like, we get them to see that they know they wouldn't last 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, they were destroyed by Battle Beast.
Well, exactly.
And, like, they also saw that Omni-Man destroyed the Immortal. Like, they know to a point, they wouldn't be able to do anything.
Yeah.
What they can do is attempt to save the humans, or the population, the survivors, if you will.
Yeah.
And I do get, like, there's that just one particular line which kind of rules of where they're going. And it's that similar beast of, like, Captain America versus Iron Man, where we get Monster Girl, or we should say we get Rupert, Robot, versus Monster Girl and the rest of them. Where Rupert's, no, Cecil told us to stay here. We're staying. Like, they're still trying to do that de facto leading bit. Because remember, it's only been a few minutes since he's revealed himself as a cloned body of Rexplode.
That's
theoretically. True. Like, this is all, like, taking place pretty quickly. But you get to see Monster Girl do the Captain America moment, as I in my head was calling it, which is showing, no, you're not a robot. You're human now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you need to save the other humans too.
Yeah.
I thought that was just such a nice moment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely,
for them.
Yeah, absolutely, and kind of sets him up for the future. He now has a robot suit that he sits inside, which is different from
Iron Man.
Basically, yeah, but a much taller Iron Man.
Yeah,
I thought that was quite cool. And then we get the kind of symbolic removal of the blood from the murder of the original Guardians of the Globe. We had Cecil tell them that will stay as a constant reminder to never let their guard down, and until they were a true team, they wouldn't be able to remove that from the wall. A weird kind of moment with Samson telling him not to remove it.
Yeah.
Until the whole team stand together. And when he realizes they are all a team, they all pitch in and symbolically wipe the blood off and then go into training montage mode to show that they are.
We're gonna have a montage.
Hey, we just came out of Falcon the Winter Soldier with their many montages throughout that show. So yes.
This one was a bit on the nose.
It was set up and it ended exactly the way it was.
But that's exactly, and that's why I can't be angry at it.
Yeah.
Like, they have anything that I slightly disagree with, or I think, not how I would. I'm like, no, you set this up.
Yeah.
You've done, you did your due diligence, you did your homework, and you're doing a payoff in the finale. Fine. Like, bravo. Like, you set up the story, you get us the key beats, you brought the team together, and then you get them to wipe forward to the next chapter.
Yeah.
Literally wipe away the blood so they move to the next and become the Guardians. And I'm like, no, you symbolically set up all the pieces and then you knocked over the dominoes. I know there's a lot of different board game analogies in one go.
But you don't do sports analogies. So,
I'm going to roll the dice because I'm going to mix. If I'm going to mix metaphors, I'm going to mix them all.
Why not, Chris? Why not? You're terrible at board games, obviously. No, I'm joking.
My God. Do you remember those multiple years long games of Game of Thrones?
Yes, I do.
Anyway. Yeah. No, so like this just felt slightly off because it's just Samson's complete kind of hesitation.
Yeah.
And then as soon as the rest of the team backs up Rexplode, like, hey, get your hand, don't fight him. Then he goes, oh, it's okay. Now we're all together in one team. I was just like, oh, okay, fine, yeah. And then you do get that beautiful training montage because that is cool. That was beautiful to see, like where they flipped him in the air and
everybody's
like,
working together properly.
Shoots out the bits and they're showing them, and then you get Monster Girl giving Duplicate the bottle of water after they have attacked each other. And you're like, oh, they're friends now.
Exactly. They are a proper team. Yeah.
Notice someone who wasn't there, though.
Adam Eve wasn't there.
Yes.
But she, interestingly, even in the news report, it was called the Guardians of the Globe and Atom Eve came into Chicago. So she's not a member of the team. Let's talk a little bit about her and where we leave her. We have, I do love this. I love William going over to the house while Mark's in hospital because he hasn't heard from Mark at all since the fight. He knows who both Omni-Man and Invincible are, so he knows they've had this fight, but he's not heard from him. Interestingly, rearranges all of their stuff to make it look more tidy at the house. But yes, himself, Eve, and Amber effectively all come to the house to meet up with Mark. Amber takes Mark back, realizing he's been lied to by his father. That's why he's so confused, and gives him another chance, and they basically get back together. And then they all go off for a coffee to talk about the situation. Just one thing about this scene that I wanted to mention is just the reveal from Eve of who she is to William and Amber. Doesn't really go as she planned.
No.
They're like, oh yeah, of course you can make loads of copies of yourself. And she goes, no, that's duplicate. Do they not? I was wondering about this, and actually I know we have a little bit of this in a question in feedback later on, but I'll answer it here. Is this just because she's not a member of the Guardians of the Globe, so she's not a fame seeker? She's gone off on her own to save regular people and doing these normal tasks, and because she's not being followed by the media for doing them, she's not as recognizable to William and Amber. Is that kind of what they're saying here?
Kind of, yeah.
I think that's kind of it. She's
She's just not as popular as she thinks she is.
Right.
She's like, she was expecting a bit of the...
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she kind of got, all right, yeah, well done. You got powers. You can rearrange your molecules. Go you.
But it wasn't even that. It was like, they didn't even know who she was.
Yeah.
Two superheroes going to their school. That's not a
no.
shocker. Yeah.
And this is the interest. Like, again, this will pay off later, I think, because we see her, like, throughout those 2 weeks, she's still saving people, helping the world, because we just see her collapse into her treehouse in a rainy day. And I think this is she is saving people, but is she making a difference?
Or is she getting the plaudits and awards that Guardians of the Globe are doing for, they get the news reports, but she does make the news report at least. So, when she's working with them in the rebuilding of Chicago, I suppose. So I just thought that's partly what the joke was with William not even, recognizing what an Atom Eve is. Who else do you want to talk about? So we got this kind of big wrap up and setup, when Mark is asked by Alan the alien, what's he going to do now? And then we see basically every major character or villain, or even minor character or villain, throughout the series and where they all are now. Feels like nobody actually was punished from the start of this season, because all the villains have moved on to bigger and better things, apart from the Muller twins.
Biplane?
He died in space. That's right. Yeah. Yes, he was punched into space.
He's gone. He's too.
That was by the Guardians of the Globe, though, wasn't it? In the first episode,
That's true. Yep. No, and this is good setup. This is what I wanted. We're gonna tease some stuff for you going forward, so kind of some things that might happen.
Yeah,
and they're going for it.
So where do you want to start?
So the Muller twins are back in prison.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Good place to start. We see Doc Seismic, who we had last seen fall into basically magma.
Yep.
Is
he was trying to crack Mount Rushmore.
Yes, exactly.
In kind of a quick scene where Eve and Mark had teamed up, right?
Yeah, and he's a doctor of he was a doctor of feminine studies. I think it was something like that. Yeah. So he is now surrounded by his magmites, which are from the comic book, and these are essentially. Do you remember the Mole Man and his mole people from Marvel comic books? Yeah. Is something very similar.
Yeah.
We see Isotope and Titan are essentially. We see a gentleman who comes in, an elderly, iron-jawed or steel-jawed Asian man, come in and then promptly change into a dragon.
Mm-hmm.
You may recognize this dragon.
Yeah, I believe it did appear on screen, didn't it?
Yeah. It was
that in Venice, or was it in...
Yeah, that was in Venice.
Okay, yes.
So this is another crime lord from the comic books, which is going to be very cool.
Is this the one... So, Titan was wiping out another crime family. Is this the leader of that crime family back in... I think it was the first fight... First battle, wasn't it? In that episode where we were introduced to Titan. He was wiping out a whole crime gang, effectively, of I guess drug dealers or gun shippers or something. But that seems to be their leader, maybe coming back to take revenge, potentially. Interesting that Isotope moved over as a right hand man as well. Sorry, I don't think I even got that from when Titan took over in that position, that he was just going to have the old right hand man of Machine Head would just move over as a new right hand man for him.
That's Mr. Liu. So he's a rival, and it's a funny thing. It's a big thing.
Okay.
What else? Where else should we go?
Just seeing Battle Beast destroying some very scared looking aliens on a ship, showing that he's still out there fighting the terrible fight, I guess. A terribly brutal fight, maybe. We also get Cecil looking over his new army of Reanimen, with D.A. Sinclair looking very healthy. Definitely got the jaw fixed and no longer in cast, but an entire army of the Reanimen. Interesting. So,
and for 3 nearly took down Invincible before.
That's true. Yeah. So if we now have
an army,
a couple of hundred, that they will probably come back in the future.
We get shown the White Room.
Oh yes, I want to talk to you about this. This is just dropped. It seems like such a big thing that this organization has, rather than just fluoride in the water to control people's minds. Sorry, wonderful old conspiracy theory from the 60s and 70s. Rather than having that, they've also added something that takes some of the light off the spectrum so they can hide many things, including the White Room. And I like Cecil's teasing that you'd be surprised how much we use this.
Yeah, exactly. And it's great.
He's not just talking about the White Room, he's talking about the technology.
Yeah.
It's surprising how much they hide things in plain sight for that people can't see. That's a really interesting idea.
It's so fun. I forgot they had not done this before. Yeah. And I was like, oh, they're doing the White Room. I thought they were going somewhere else with it. Uh-huh. But it's just it's a fun conspiracy, and then you start to think about it.
Right.
And you're like,
hang on a second, what's hidden?
Oh,
absolutely.
What else is hidden in plain sight?
Absolutely. If we can see cameras that watch everybody in the world, what's being hidden?
Yeah, exactly. We then get the Sequids.
Oh yes, from Mars. So kind of a follow-up, kind of closing out the story from Mars, because they, the last time we saw them taking control of one of the astronauts up there. This time we see that they are destroying the Martians. They've infiltrated the Martian base and they're attacking them in their droves, effectively.
Because that one Martian wanted to go to Earth.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that will pay off in the season 2.
Uh-huh.
And
I've got one more, which I mentioned up front, and I was really surprised with. The race that were exterminated by Omni-Man when he travelled over through the portal to their planet, and we thought made them extinct over those, as you say, possibly hundreds of years. There are still survivors, and they're plotting their revenge on Earth with a picture of Nolan in the corner with his beard. So they're looking to take revenge and looking to come back and making their plans against us. Which is just interesting, because I did think they were completely wiped out and there was anybody left, but I was trying to puzzle it through in my head, and I was kind of thinking, time moves differently there. They may have had a couple of 100 years and a few people and have reestablished their planet again. Maybe that's the way it works.
It is, essentially.
Right.
Because we whole thing, we heard like time moves very fast for them. So this is essentially like a god has come through from another plane of existence, destroyed us, bar 1 or 2 or 4 people. They have repopulated the planet over hundreds of years, and everyone is still like, we must go back and kill him. Exactly. This god must die. They are doing the Jesse Eisenberg, Lex Luthor kind of Man of Steel, Justice League bit, where it's the god must die.
Right.
Me men must rise up and kill him.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I again, these are just, it's a nice setup. It lets you know that these plot lines are coming.
Yeah.
And by the way, like Doc Seismic, let's just quickly remind, he was there, we saw him on screen for, let's say a max 4 or 5 minutes.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. It's like that. Like, it's like, hey, that character you saw for 4 or 5 minutes who was kind of like just a passing bit of thing. Yeah, he's going to come back, and he may be a problem now.
Yeah.
Or we may use him for 4 or 5 minutes in season 2.
Exactly. Exactly. I did like this, and again, I like the framing of it as well, which is the question from Alan, what are you going to do now? We cut to all of these things happening across the universe that Mark is already connected with, and then it comes back to him and he goes, oh, well, I've got to finish high school. So he's not even aware of how much threat is coming in season 2 and season 3. I really like that as a setup. I think that's it for my notes. And as I say, the stream of consciousness that I took down for this episode. Anything else you wanted to call out, Chris?
No, nothing from me. I highly recommend if anyone's doing a second kind of viewing, go through it with the X-ray on Amazon Prime. Please, it is, you will learn so much. Like so many little cool bits. They've also got some kind of bonus commentary bits up there as well.
Yeah, weirdly, I can only get access to those when I'm watching it on a PC. I'm not sure whether the apps have access to that bonus content. You can't even see it on there, but if you're watching on a PC, you'll get video interviews with Robert Kirkman and some of the other producers talking about each episode in a kind of a 4 or 5 minute, maybe a little longer commentary that kind of connects stuff to the comic without spoiling the comic either, but it's talking about what they, side by side, what matches, I suppose, and what they pulled directly from the comic. It's really interesting.
Yeah, so I highly recommend that. But upon that, because I've highly recommended that, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth at all. But Derek, do you defend the season finale of season 1 of Invincible?
Of course I defend this. Yes, absolutely. This was fantastic. Considering we started this out as a podcast because you wanted to cover it, Chris, and you were telling us we should try it out. I'm a big Robert Kirkman fan. We were going to do 20-minute episodes about each of the episodes because it's only an animated show. We could do it really quickly. And how here we are at the end of the season, and I think it's one of the most complete things I've watched in quite a long time. Really well put together with a really strong storyline, great action, great voice acting, great writing in the show. And I loved how this ends. And I also loved the announcement that we have 2 more seasons coming before I saw the episode, because that always makes it good when you know this isn't the end. This is the setup for a definite future, which is always good. So yes, absolutely love this one. Chris, what about you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me ask you in a different way. Not just do you defend the show? Did it live up to your hopes and expectations for a TV version of Invincible?
It truly did. So I honestly did, yes. When, as you said, I was expecting we'd jump around this 20 minutes each, maybe half an hour with some feedback. It's like, I can't wait. This is one of my favorite comic books. Do you know what? They'll probably do it justice, but my expectations were not set high because they have been dashed before.
Right.
Like, let's not lie. Comic book and comic book adaptations sometimes on the silver or golden screen sometimes not have been the best.
Is your TV golden?
Yes, it is.
Interesting.
Plated. Yeah. It's actually just gold leaf. It's just kind of like, it's edible as well.
Did you paint it yourself, Chris?
I did.
Okay.
So I didn't have huge hopes. I thought this would just be a good adaptation. They'd jump a mile kind of, and they'd miss huge story beats just to kind of condense it down. And then we found out it was going to, like, each episode was nearly an hour. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. And then that opening trilogy of episodes.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is not your kids' Invincible. This is not like, we're going to pare this down for you. No, like, I was like, oh, wow. And then I heard some of the interviews with Kirkman, and I heard, like, Oatley, and I heard about, like, some of the other directors and stuff like that talk about this show. And I was like, oh, they're doing the 1.5. This is, do you know what? This is a piece of material we wrote back in the day. We are all way better at writing and directing and stuff like that. We've learned over the years. Mm-hmm. So let's, like, that's it. No one kill me. But this is remember Sherlock Holmes? So when you read Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes for the first time, and then you saw, say, the Benedict Cumberbatch version of Sherlock. Yep. They up-leveled it because there has been this, like, knowledge of, oh, well, you can take a beautiful story and you can just evolve it.
Yeah.
While staying very true to what it is. But you can just pull out some extra, like, give some extra dialogue to Debbie, or give this extra small bit of, like, joke here around Doc Seismic, or like to extend out this scene with Adam Eve and Rex Flode, so that will pay off later. Yeah. And all these, they were able to just evolve and grow without detracting from. So for me, this has it has subverted my expectations.
Excellent. I know the question that we were talking about early on in the season as well was, for you as a comic book reader, with the kinds of twists and turns that are in the comic book, would it be ruined by you already knowing what was coming? And you already talked about that earlier on a little bit as well. But overall, what's been delivered on screen has been satisfying, I guess.
Yeah. So I knew this finale, this reveal was coming since episode 1.
Mm-hmm.
The way it was delivered, the way they showed how little Nolan cared.
Yeah.
I never in a lifetime would have guessed. So yeah, even with that burden of knowledge, we sometimes call it on this, as I sometimes call it, that burden of knowledge.
There you go.
I am just happy because Excellent. It was so well done. Like that shows the strength of good writers.
Mm-hmm.
It really does. A good writer's room and a good kind of source material.
Excellent. Well, one final thing before we go into feedback about the announcement of season 2 and season 3. I really, really hope that they didn't just find out this week that season 2 and season 3 have been announced. One of the writers from the show just popped up on Twitter to say, just remember, the first season of Invincible took 2.5 to 3 years to make. If they only just found out on Wednesday or Thursday this week, it may be a very long time before we come back to a season 2 of Invincible. So I would be shocked if they hadn't got commissioned for those 3 seasons quite a long time ago.
So that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that so much because yes, then maybe every April, maybe kind of March, we'll get it for the next 2 years. Like we could get that. That being said, this may have been a bit of an unknown. And we may have to wait to 18 months or so.
Maybe.
Like, no, they don't have to go full pre-production.
Yeah.
They can save on some of the animation they've already done and all the previous work they've already done.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not as big of a uplift to get there. If they did just find out this week.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping it was just a known secret.
I'd be surprised. Breaking down an animation studio who does TV and starting it back up again is really unusual in the industry, isn't it? So stuff like I think Simpsons, every time it gets renewed, gets 3-season renewals, and Family Guy, when it gets renewed, it gets 3-season renewals because when you stop work on something and start it again, it gives a huge gap in delivery of the product. So let's hope, we're crossing fingers here at TV Podcast Industries, that there will be a season 2 within the next year or so, right?
Yes, very much so. But if Robert Kirkman wants to come on our little podcast and tell us we are right or wrong, or no comment, we will accept that as well.
We'll even accept Robert Kirkman coming on going, we have no comment about that. Excellent.
Let's move on to some of the feedback from our fellow Guardians. First up, we had an email from John Daniel, who had this to say. Hey there! I've been really adoring your coverage of the Invincible show. I'm even trying to catch up on the comic, which I didn't know existed until a few weeks ago. Last episode you mentioned the Harley Quinn animated series was something a fan of Invincible might be into, and you were correct. It's absolutely hilarious. Thanks so much. Also, I may as well predict that I think the season finale of Invincible will be all about the fight. We'll see soon enough. Take care, John from Chicago. So, multiple things there I want to call out, John. First and foremost, thank you. I'm glad you're adoring our coverage. We are so happy. And I'm so glad as well that you've caught up on the comic. We're catching up on the comic book. Thirdly, yes, Harley Quinn. Again, I rarely recommend stuff. But, well, no, I don't. I recommend stuff.
Recommend stuff every week. No, you defend stuff every week, sorry.
Yes, I defend. But I would... Anyone else who's listening, yes, check out Harley Quinn. I'm so glad you are enjoying it as well. It really is hilarious. And fourthly, your prediction came quite true.
Yes, the entire episode was literally about the fight. Excellent. Thanks so much, Sean. Great to hear from you. And thanks and welcome aboard. Hopefully you're going to join us for some of our other shows as we continue going on TV Podcast Industries. We also got an email from Amrita Das, who says, this is my first time writing in, but I've really enjoyed your podcast for about a year now, especially on The Boys Season 2 and The Witcher. About Invincible, I was so confused by Amber's reaction in episode 7. She broke up with him last episode 6, because he apparently ran away when they had the cyborg killing machine attacking them. But she saw that Invincible showed up right after, and if she knew who Invincible was for ages, then why was she so mad? He did help keep everyone safe. They've known each other a few months, at this point, and a secret identity is huge. It just doesn't make sense for me that Amber broke up with him over the fact that his big secret was saving lives, and was mad that he didn't tell her, and still stayed mad when he did tell her. I'm kind of feeling like she's playing him somehow. Do you guys think Amber is just being childish or has some secret agenda? Thanks, Amrita. That's an interesting idea, Amrita. They are back together in this episode. I know, obviously, you hadn't seen the episode before you sent in this feedback. Now, Amber and Mark are back together. I think there's just that trust thing, isn't there? There's just that idea that he didn't tell her, and William knows as well. There's part of that. There's the idea that he thinks this will get him out of trouble at any stage, by saying that, well, I'm a superhero, so that's why I never turn up for these important times in your life. So I think she's just reacting in that way because he's using being a superhero as an excuse for not being dependable. I think that's probably what it is.
Yeah. But I'm just going to say, I don't like that they're back together. I did not like that ending. But, and I think that's more just because I recently started watching Superman and Lois.
Okay.
And Lois Lane consistently, when she knows Clark is Superman, spoiler alert, sorry, Clark Kent is Superman. Oops, sorry.
90-year-old spoiler alert.
Yeah. Should have led with that. She agrees, and this additionally, this whole new series of Superman and Lois is about how he had to consistently run off, and she was okay with it, but then their kids kind of didn't have Clark around all the time. Yeah. So I was like, no, he's in there. Armida, you're right. He's saving people.
Yeah.
And she knew, so she shouldn't be that angry, I suppose.
But she wasn't told, except as an excuse, and then he tried to make up terrible excuses, even though she knew. I think that's part of it, but I totally get what you mean, though, Amrita. It's a really, I think it was a nice twist that she knew and didn't accept that as an excuse. I think that's more what I was interested in that moment. But again, they are back together. We'll see how long that lasts when we get to season 2, I guess, because I'm sure Mark's going to put his foot in it again.
Oh, of course.
Over on Facebook, John Bucket has a quick message for us. He just said, "Oof, that subway scene."
Yep, that is my response. Yep. I was trying to think of, like, just kind of to do something a bit more harsh, but I really didn't want to do, like, water pouring out a rock or something, just to kind of go, no, that's not, no, that's terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, Dr. Bob Phillips says, that was a proper finale, wasn't it? I enjoyed the buckets of blood, the unyielding subway scene, the wrap-up, and loads of the baddies being put back on the board for another game, and the hint of redemption, and learning of the next 2 seasons getting me internally predicting how this arc will evolve. The diner scene at the end, with the reveal of Eve, who clearly looks identical but without the leotard, made me wonder if this was a dig at comic fans failing to distinguish any female superheroes from each other, or if this was from the original comic books or something added into the TV show. Any idea, did William and Amber know that Eve was Atom Eve, or did they confuse her with the comic books being duplicate, Chris, or is this just added to the show?
Added to the show.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I suppose it could be just a dig that, because she does look the exact same, but with just a leotard.
Yeah.
And tights. But at the same point, I think it also could just be a dig at she is not as popular as, or as big as, she was a member of Teen Team.
Yeah.
But maybe Teen Team is, like, not as big as the Teen Titans, for example.
Right, maybe.
Yes.
Thanks for that, Dr. Bob.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Bob. We also have some feedback from Dan Lee, who said, I was blown away by this episode. Up until 2 weeks ago, I hadn't even heard of Invincible. But this finale is one of the best things I've watched in goodness how long.
Mm-hmm.
So glad we have you on board, Dan. That means you binged our show as well as Invincible at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of that. 2 weeks binging of all our episodes.
Good man, Dan.
Final piece of feedback on Facebook comes from Donald Dennis, who said, wow, great episode. Or later if I get a second viewing. We hope you got a second viewing, Donald. Like, we really do. This deserves, I know I've done 2 viewings. Derek, I think you had 3.
I've had at least 3.
And I think I'll probably, midway through the year, I'll do a kind of, on a good long weekend, do a back-to-back viewing of this, I think.
Absolutely. But glad to know you enjoyed the episode. I completely forgot to mention the reason why I watched it twice last night was when it came out at 2 a.m. John was asleep. He had slept, of course, because it's 2 a.m., but I turned on the episode because it went live. John woke up about 10 minutes into the episode, watched the rest of it, and was kind of going, that wasn't as big a reveal as I thought Chris was making it out to be. I thought it was going to be this massive reveal of what had gone on with the Viltrumites. I said, you missed the first 10 minutes of the episode. Let's just rewind that. And when he saw the first 10 minutes, yes, he realized that is an absolutely massive reveal and realized how much better the episode is with those 10 minutes included.
Yeah. If you're going to watch the Invincible episode, we highly recommend you watch the first 10 minutes of every episode.
All of it, yes.
Yes, or at least start with that first 10 minutes and then watch the rest.
Don't jump in after that, definitely. Just as we finished recording, got a final email in about Invincible, the finale, from 084. 084 says, "Hey guys, I finally binged through Invincible and definitely have thoughts on the finale. It was crazy. In an episode and season filled with insane, gratuitous deaths, they somehow topped themselves with that brutal train scene. I had hoped that Omni-Man's motivations were much less mustache twirly, but they still got me emotion-wise, particularly the pet line. I also liked that Invincible didn't miraculously win the fight with brute strength, and instead it ended with a small inner conflict within Omni-Man. Can't wait to see how the show goes from here. Hope you guys are doing splendid, and enjoy your week. Until next time, 084. There is absolutely a reason why I came back to record this feedback, because we didn't mention the pet line, which is another brutal moment from Omni-Man where he says that Debbie is more like a pet to him than a wife, because she's only going to last a few years in the entire life cycle of who he is. That was brutal. And she heard that. Absolutely. And she heard we should have actually talked about when we talked about her crying in the bed before going to over to the dressmaker. Mm-hmm. But that's oof. But I have to say though, mustachio twirling, less mustachio twirling, more I think we kind of more SS bootstepping, if you will. Empire based versus kind of mustachio. I have the world. Although he does have a mustache and he is villainous, so he would of course twirl his mustache if he wanted to. It's too short and well maintained. Maybe. Like he would need to kind of do those flicks up. Now, if it was hipster Omni-Man, yes, that would be mustachio twirling. I love it. Thanks so much for your feedback, 084. Yeah, thank you so much, 084. To wrap up our feedback section, we have some feedback from the one, the only, the impeccable Steve Brown.
Did I realize before that they were speaking without moving their lips in the first time we see Seth Rogen's character? Hey guys, it's Steve, and I'm watching Invincible, where I really come from for the first time, and just wanted to make two quick comments before I finish the episode. Nolan said the name in the last episode at the end of the episode. He said it very closely to the name of this episode, very close to the beginning of this episode, and I'm this many days old realizing that Alan the Alien and Invincible were talking with their minds. Okay, wow. I absolutely cannot wait to watch that again because, wow, so bloody, that fight. I don't know where to begin. I already kind of begun, but wow. Okay, so a couple of things that I think is interesting that, so we have the coalition of planets and then we have the Viltrumite Empire, right? So they're obviously against each other. And so now, where did Nolan go? That's going to be the interesting, and the announcement that they have been renewed for a second and a third season is so exciting that, and they have so much story to tell. I mean, we saw that whole montage of all the different threats that could be coming to Earth, and we know that the Martian threat is still out there as well. So, wow. Okay, I'm going to watch it again and send some thoughts to Mark and Jamie, but I can't wait to hear you guys break this one down. Talk to you later.
Excellent, Steve. Thanks so much. Yeah, I actually looked back at the episode where Alan was introduced before, and yes, they are talking with their minds back then as well. It's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously this comes from my comic book, so it's normally on the page, so you never have to even explain that they're talking with their minds because their lips don't move. But a really interesting choice that both of them are speaking with their minds in the show. Thanks, Steve. Yes, the beginning
of this is brilliant because I do love how they have said the name of the episode in every episode.
Mm-hmm.
It does remind me of I think there was a film or the TV show. It's like, they said the name of it's Family Guy. It's like, they said the name of the film in the film.
Yes.
They have been doing this, and I love that. That.
It was interesting. Look, we've kind of analysed that in other shows how they use the titles and where they get the titles of the episodes from. And the comic books, I think, are all named after albums or musicians, I think, from 80s and 90s music and stuff, whereas they didn't take any of that inspiration. This is all in-episode titles, right?
Yeah. I think they should have kept with the original because we would have been doing like the Luke Cage. Back when we were doing Defenders TV podcast, it was every episode of Luke Cage was based on a kind of 80s or 90s rap or R&B.
A song by Gangstar was the treatment for season 1 of that, yeah. But yes, I totally agree with you, Steve. So much set up for what's going on next season in those final moments as well. And a very, very bloody episodes. Thanks once again for all of the feedback that we've received throughout the season of Invincible. Hopefully you will return to us in the future for other shows that we're doing. Weirdly, this is our first animated show that we've done on TV Podcast Industries, and we are staying in the realm of animation for the next while, actually. I don't know when we're going back to full live action week-to-week coverage in the future, but we will be staying in... Well, actually, we'll be traveling to a galaxy far, far away because we're going to be covering Star Wars The Bad Batch, which begins on May 4th. Of course. May the 4th be with you. It begins on May the 4th on Disney Plus with a 50-minute episode, followed by another new episode, a half-hour episode on Friday, and then every Friday from then on for the rest of the season. So we'll be covering that. That's our next big show. We'll also be staying in animation, this time with Marvel, for MODOK. I know you're a MODOK fan, Chris.
I'm a machine organically described for killing?
Something like that.
I think that was it. That was off the top of my head without a take. So
I'm not sure if all those letters are right, Chris.
Mental organism designed...
Only for killing, Chris.
Yes, there you go. I knew I was close, damn it.
So this is the robot chicken of the Marvel universe, the kind of Family Guy of the Marvel universe. So poking some fun at Marvel heroes and villains. And will be available from I think May 28th on Star, which is the adult side of Disney Plus. So
yes, we have Patton Oswalt as MODOK. We have John Hamm as Iron Man. We have the one and only Nathan Fillion as Wonder Man, reprising his role, apparently, maybe, who knows. Theoretically, he may have posed as Simon Williams back in the day for James Gunn on the back of a poster.
I think so, yeah.
But who knows? Who knows? Yes, looking forward to it. But first and foremost, before we kind of wrap up here, as we wrap up, I should say, thank you so much for joining us. This has been an absolute pleasure to do this podcast with my illustrious co-host Eric, but also with all our fellow Guardians. We enjoy doing this, and we will be back when Invincible comes back. If they do drop anything crazy, we'll be back in for those one-offs, but I don't think they will. But I highly recommend anyone check out the comic book.
Absolutely.
Support your local comic book shops in this dire time. And give them an old, buy the first 18, 30 issues, and that'll get you up to date where we are now.
Exactly. Oh, and of course, if you're subscribed to our Invincible feed or Invincible standalone feed, we do cover The Boys on this, so we'll be getting season 2 and season 3 of The Boys as well on this feed. But otherwise, join us over on tvpodcastindustries.com for our normal, regular episodes every week. We are just finishing up our coverage of Falcon and the Winter Soldier with our recap of the making of episode, which just came out on Disney Plus today, the 30th of April, and we'll also be announcing the winner of our goodies, our Falcon and the Winter Soldier pub quiz over there on our main feed. So please join us there. If not, we'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you for joining us. If you like what you've heard, make sure you head on over to patreon.com/TV Podcast Energy, where you can support us for just a single dollar bill, y'all. Or don't want to support us for patreon.com, why not head on over to buymeacoffee.com/TVPI, where you can buy our editor supreme. Yes, I wanted to say like Hail Hydra reference in there, but I could go Madame Coffee, if you will.
Okay.
I don't know. If you want to head on over to buymeacoffee.com, yes, you can keep our illustrious editor, Derek, in caffeine as he edits away into the wee hours of the morning.
Yes, that would be awesome. Buymeacoffee.com/TVPI if you want to support us in a one-off way. Other than that, you can pop on over to Patreon and support us for any amount on a monthly basis. Thanks so much to everybody that's been supporting us over the last couple of years as well. Been really good to hear from you and get some great comments from you throughout all of our coverage. We will talk to you again really soon, I'm sure.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us. Can't wait to talk to you for season 2 and 3. Hopefully in less than 12 months, but we'll see. Remember, keep watching, keep listening, keep being invincible.
Bye.
Bye.